But if they asked in meeting one, hey, what did you do with my account statements? We can open up their folder and say, oh, we ran this 30-page report for you, but since we're out of time today, let's cover that at the very top of our next meeting. Speaking of next meeting, let's put you on for next Monday if that works. Same time, same place.
Welcome into Impactful Conversations, stories and lessons for financial advisors. I'm your host, Dave Edgecombe. Joining me again, Beth Page, our conversion coach here at Impact. This is episode 2 of our series, How Do You Work Less and Produce More? Beth's wheelhouse is turning prospects into clients. In episode 1, we covered the how do you get that person to come into that appointment and the sort of pointed questions that you can ask, being really strategic, putting prefaces on those questions. If you want this episode to make a lot more sense, I'm gonna issue out a little homework to you and say, watch that episode and then come back here and pick this up, because we're gonna pick up the baton and continue that process of what somebody is going to do on the phone to get somebody to come in and for that first meeting, but ultimately the subsequent meetings after that. We're gonna talk about homework. Homework. We're going to talk about the importance of taking notes throughout this whole thing. I cannot stress that enough. And the value of drip campaigns and how they can really be a difference maker when it comes to keeping someone on that hook. But I want you to tell me a story first and foremost, because you have a really unique experience. You started out with an advisor and you helped him grow to be one of Impact's biggest producer. $100 million shop, and it wasn't an overnight thing. It took a process, it took time to perfect, and it took a little bit of trial and error when it came to that first appointment, right?
Absolutely.
So what did that look and feel like for you guys when you were first kind of dialing it in?
Sure. Well, when we first started out, we wanted just everybody to come in. It's like, oh gosh, we got leads, let's bring them all in. And then we got to be so busy that it's like, well, gosh, let's target the right kind of lead, not only in what we ask for on the radio or, what we ask for in commercials and TV, targeting the right audience. But then let's make sure that the person on the phone has the right amount of assets, not in total assets, but investable assets. So that those are two different things, right? Mm-hmm. Some people say, well, it's $1 million case. Well, sometimes it's not actually $1 million case, right? Yep. So let's find that stuff out in the beginning to make sure we're not just scheduling everybody in, but we're scheduling in the right people, right? And then not only that, but let's get them prepared to their best of their abilities so we can be prepared to the best of our abilities, so we can maybe even shorten up the sales process. Instead of having 3-4 appointment closes, let's shore that up to like 1-2 appointment closes if we could, right? And so through the evolution of all these processes and putting this stuff in place, we were able to do that. Most people were closing on a second meeting. Sometimes it would turn into a third, but then it'd be a short third meeting. But we did a lot of work on the front end. That way there was less work to do on the back end.
So when you guys were trying to figure that out, what were you saying to people on the phone and realized that it wasn't necessarily the best way to do it?
So people used to say, well, because we would try to schedule them right away. It's like they called in, let's say on a Saturday morning radio show, and it's like, well, do you want to come in on Monday? And they're like, oh, well, I'm going to have to find all my statements and, get organized. And we used to just say, gosh, you know what? Just find everything you got, throw it in a pile, throw it in a box, and just bring it on in with you. We'll sort through it together, right? Well, through evolution of becoming more refined, and having more people on the calendar and having meetings back to back to back all day long, we had to refine that process where it's like, you can't come in unorganized. You can't be missing a few statements, or you can't come in without your full monthly statement. Can't come in with just a spreadsheet of numbers, right? Saying you have $1 million here and there, but it's just a spreadsheet that you created, right? We need to know that this person owns the dollars they own in order to talk to them about their account.
Yeah.
But so we used to just say that, don't feel like you need to be super prepared. Just throw it all in a pile and bring it on in. Well, when we started booking out quite a little ways, it's like, well, they're not going to be able to get in 2 days later. They're going to come in 2 weeks later, or maybe a month later. And we didn't want them to lose interest or to lose steam. So we created homework for that person. It's like, okay, they're not coming in for a month. You better believe that person's going to have every single statement sent to us. We're going to have some reports run for them. And we're also going to send them a few emails here and there and make a few phone calls before that monthly appointment shows up to make sure they're still going to come. And so we did that, obviously for us to keep that person engaged, but for them too, to not lose sight of, oh, they heard a different advisor's talk show, or, now somebody else could get them in sooner. So they're going to go to that office. It's like we wanted to secure that lead, even though we needed to book them out quite a little ways. Right?
Where did you assign this homework? At what point in the process did you assign that homework?
Very first phone call. So our very first phone call, it was
At the tail end of it?
Sure. Yep. After we had already secured the meeting.
Okay.
It's like, okay, so let me tell you what we're going to need for you to do next. So we've got you scheduled. So I'm going to send you an email when we hang up the phone here, and there'll be some instructions in there, but it should be pretty simple. Basically, you told me you have a 401k, you have an IRA, you have a checking and a savings account. So we're just going to need a statement to each of those accounts that shows all the holdings and the values. And that way we can run a quantitative analysis for you and have a portfolio review ready for your meeting. We're not saying, can you send us your statements? Do you want to get your statements together? Do you want to throw them all in a pile and bring them in? It was, here's what you need to do. So right when we hang up here, I'm going to send you a worksheet. It's going to have a place for you to list out all those assets. And then you're going to need to send in a copy to each account statement. Right? So it was just, let me tell you what you need to do next in order to get this free meeting, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we're making time for you on our busy calendar to give you a free consultation. Sure sounds like you have a lot of questions and there's something we could do to help you out. But in order to get that, you need to give us this. So it kind of goes back to that first episode, the give-get.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm going to give this to you, but what do you need to give to me?
I got to imagine the value of the homework is twofold. Yes, it makes your life easier. You're not sorting through that pile when they come in for the first appointment, but when you conclude that phone call with, hey, these are the next steps, XYZ, here's that email, bing, it goes to there, it probably makes you guys look pretty, you guys are looking the part, especially if you're trying to manage someone's retirement and they've got millions of dollars potentially.
Absolutely. It's twofold. It's like, yeah, we want to be prepared for them, but we also want them to be prepared for their meeting versus coming in and being like, gosh, I don't know the total of that account.
I haven't even thought of that.
Yeah, last time I checked, it was a year ago. And it's just, not only are they going to be more likely to show up and keep their appointment, right? But we are prepared for them. We can schedule them the very next week and not have to wait for them to send us their statements or wait to run a report for them. That back and forth that kind of gets lost sometimes when you're managing 30-some new leads a week, right? If you're getting a whole bunch of phone calls, and a lot of our shops are, right? You have to stay organized or else people aren't going to show up, or they're going to show up unprepared, or we're not going to know who they are because we just dealt with 10 other people that same day, right? So it's for them to be organized and for them to be working on something in the meantime so they don't go to another shop or so they don't lose interest in being booked out a little ways. So it's twofold. Helps us, also helps them.
I don't want to get into the drip campaign stuff just yet, but I want to know what is the follow-up in terms of keeping them honest for that homework. You're assigning that homework and it's not if they show up with it, great. You're checking in because you need that stuff before they come in, right?
Yeah. So we would secure that on the first phone call. And it's, again, that motivational interviewing technique. It's like, okay, great. Hey, when we hang up the phone here, I'm going to send you a worksheet. I'm also going to need a copy to each account statement. When do you think you could get that sent over? I know our appointment's out a little ways, but this is what we normally do is we put people on a wait list. So if you don't want to wait a month to get in, I can actually add you to the wait list once I receive your paperwork. And that way, if something opens up sooner, you'll be the first one I call, right? So it's like, I know you don't want to wait a month to get in for your appointment. That's what our calendar shows now. But if you get me these items, I could maybe get you in sooner if something opens up. And then peppering in those little things on, it's not very often that we have a cancellation, but if we do, you'll be the first person I'll call.
So I sometimes issue out homework to advisors, or I do videos with advisors, and they use that same terminology about, here's some homework. And I think for when I issue some homework, the part that's lacking is the person that I'm assigning it to doesn't feel they don't feel like they have skin in the game because that homework isn't valuable enough.
Absolutely.
Whereas this homework that you're assigning out is not, hey, read the newspaper before you come in next time so you can read off the teleprompter better. Wink. It's, hey, I need these account statements and I'm going to need some very, private personal information from you. You're not just going to give that to someone and then not show up for their appointment, right?
Absolutely. Yep, you're exactly right. It's valuable to them. It's valuable to us. It gives them something to work on in the interim between the phone call and the showing up for their meeting. But then also we would run a Morningstar report over their accounts. Did we cover that in meeting one? Absolutely not. But if they asked in meeting one, hey, what did you do with my account statements? We can open up their folder and say, oh, we ran this 30-page report for you, but since we're out of time today, let's cover that at the very top of our next meeting. Speaking of next meeting, let's put you on for next Monday if that works. Same time, same place. Right? But if we don't hold them accountable on the telephone to when they're going to get that in, the next week will show up, their meeting's on the calendar, they're coming in unprepared. That's just not how we do business. The advisor I worked for, he would turn someone away if they showed up for their meeting and we didn't have their statements.
What did that look like?
I mean, it didn't happen very often after it happened. I tell you what, that was like a one and done because it's like, oh, this is awkward.
I mean, is it awkward?
Oh man,
I gotta think it's.
Some people are coming from out of town, and that was just his procedure. He got to be so busy. And again, you don't do $100 million in new annuity business a year, one advisor, if you don't have those rules enforced and if you don't have those processes in place. So it's like, I didn't do my job by getting their statements. They didn't do their job by sending them to me. Advisor can't do his job because he can't get through a first meeting and cover everything we need to cover if we don't have those items. And so he would be like, I'm not going to waste my time and do a meeting with somebody that may or may not have the money they say they have, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to go take a break. You reschedule them for when I can get them back on the calendar and make sure they have their stuff, right?
This has got to be really difficult for some advisors that are scared to take that leap. But you're painting the picture of a discerning office.
Absolutely.
That is, they're not shopping for us. They're shopping for us just as much as we're shopping for them.
Yes, 100%. It's like, let's cherry pick the clients we want to work with. And here's what we found over the years, and this is just a shameless little plug here. Advisors don't want to set minimums, or they set them, but they don't enforce them. So I think across the country right now, the minimum is around $250,000, right? It's like, we don't want to meet with somebody that doesn't have that amount of money. Sometimes people still will, but why? And so we put a hard line in the sand and said, if somebody calls in and they had $200,000, we would not meet with them, right? And this has evolved over the years too. But let's say somebody calls in and they have $100,000. There's a lot of shops that were like, oh, we're not busy this week, bring them in. But here's the thing. If you fill up your calendar with a bunch of those meetings because you're not busy, then when the ones that do have $1 million call in, there's no space for them.
You're pushing them out a month.
Yes. So hard line in the sand on your numbers. If they don't have it, don't invite them in. That number for us grew greater and greater over the years. I think when we were at the tail end of advising, it was like a $750,000 case was the minimum. If they didn't have that, they couldn't get in. And we can talk more about how we kept those people on a drip that maybe had $500,000. It's kind of hard to tell somebody they don't have enough money to work with us, but we kind of kept them in a limbo in case we did ever have a cancellation. We'd reach back out to some of those people and invite them in, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, we'll get to the drip campaigns in a minute, but I want to, before we get too far away from it, again, the theme throughout this is the taking notes and being able to know what the hot button issues are for for the person that's on the phone with you, regardless if you were the person on the phone with them the first time or if it was somebody else in the office.
Yep.
So can you please paint the picture of what those notes look like, or what they entail?
Sure. So we had our departments segregated out by, who was doing lead calls, who was taking notes in the first meeting, who was going to handle the 401k rollovers, who was going to do deliveries, who was going to transfer this and that, who was going to call them in between first and second meeting or between second and third meeting. So everybody had to know what they were doing and what needed to be done at next. And so anytime you opened up the CRM, anytime you opened up the calendar, you needed to track what you were doing. I don't care if it was left a message to confirm their appointment. That needed to be in there. Whether it was asked for the statements, still waiting to received statements, whatever the next thing that needs to be done or what was done, so that anybody knew where somebody else had left off, right? And that was so important because the hot button on the first phone call might have been, my advisor's retiring, so I'm shopping around for a new shop, right? But then after meeting one, the hot button might be, they're going to run out of money. They want to retire this year, but they don't have enough to support the lifestyle they're living, right? So come second meeting, let's say this person calls to cancel their meeting. Well, now we have some ammunition, right? We have some ammunition on that phone call to say, hey, I know you shared this with us. We're really looking forward to this meeting. Here's what you needed to bring in with you. We'll look forward to seeing you then, right? We can kind of say something that keeps them from canceling that meeting, or from not showing up to the appointment. But if you're taking those meticulous notes, I had assistants, there were other people doing my role. Sometimes I took a personal day. Sometimes my kids were sick, whatever the reason. If I'm not able to come in that day, the work doesn't stop. We need somebody to fill that void and fill that gap. And if they can read exactly what was done and where, they know what to do next.
Before we started rolling here, you said there was something that you wanted to get in here, and I think this is the great opportunity for it. And we have an advisor here that loves to say, if I get hit by a pickle truck, my business needs to continue to go on, and that CEO mindset and not just being a salesperson. With that in mind, you have said that some advisors want to be on the call, want to be on the phone, making that appointment.
Yeah, there's a lot of advisors that can't give up control in certain areas because let's be real, they're probably the best at it, right? At the end of the day, it's like, I know how to talk to leads. I've been working in this business for 30 years. I know what to say. I know how to get them in. I know how to keep them on the hook for coming in. But you cannot run a busy calendar and you cannot do more business if you have too many hands in the pot, right? If you're doing all the roles, you can't do what you're best at, which is sitting in the conference room, writing business, and meeting with as many people as you can, right? So you have to train someone up to do it as good as you, if not better. And I had that firsthand where it's like, watching my assistants take phone calls and not converting leads where I knew I could have converted that person, it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, that's on me to train that person better. And so the next phone call that they take, they're scheduling, right? And so that's how the advisor needs to view it. It's like, I don't want to be answering phone calls. If I'm the voice on the radio or if I'm the man on TV, I shouldn't have extra time to be answering the phone.
You're too busy.
Right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound live then too. If you're answering phone calls when they say, call now to get your portfolio X, right?
Then the house of cards starts crumbling if you're live and also answering the phone. Oh, no, I'm on a break.
Are you the guy on the radio right now?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yeah. So you have to train someone up to do that. And here's the thing. They can make that their entire career. And if they do it really well, it's like that need is always going to be there, because if the person on the phone isn't setting appointments, the advisors aren't going to be having meetings. So those are the two most very important roles in the office: is who's taking those phone calls, who's setting those appointments, who's keeping those people coming in, and who's closing the business, right? If you don't have those two roles, you don't have new business, because you're not going to get to that stage of applications, right?
Everyone knows what hat they're wearing, so to speak.
Yep.
You've mentioned drip campaigns kind of in passing. Now is a great opportunity to really shine a light on what that means. Now, we've done house rules on drip campaigns. We'll put those links in the description. You can check those out when we're done here or when we're done with episode 3, because I think episode 3 will cover a lot of the getting better and perfecting this and how do you improve when you're on the phone with somebody. But in terms of those drip campaigns, they are not some automated, I click a button and they get 3 emails and it's the same 3 things going to every prospect that calls.
Correct.
There's far more strategy involved, correct?
Absolutely. Well, that's how we ran our practice. And I don't see that a lot because they have someone in a lead setting role that's wearing so many different hats in the office. It's like their lead setter's also the office manager, or they're also filling out applications. To really perfect it and segregate out those roles, all the lead setter should be doing is talking to leads, sending them emails, communicating with them, getting them on the calendar. If somebody falls off the calendar, filling that spot with somebody else on a wait list. But that is a full-time role, especially if you want to grow your practice to be efficient and to be really busy and to go from appointment to appointment to appointment with not needing anything in between. So that being said, we did a lot of hand holding in the beginning before they became a client. Yes, you can automate once somebody's in your camp, but before that, it's like they're going to be more appreciative of a handwritten card that's sending out saying thanks for meeting with us than getting an email with some standardized verbiage that's like, we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thank you for coming to our office,
Yeah.
It's like a handwritten card, and we even pre-wrote some of those cards out. We had the advisors sign off on them. We did a stack of 50 and all we had to do was fill in their name. Card was already handwritten. Advisor had already signed it. It would go out the same day they left the meeting. Sometimes it would show up in their mailbox the very next day. How cool is that?
Yeah.
How awesome is that? It was so great meeting with you. We're really looking forward to helping you. You're in great shape. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. If you get that in the mail the next day, you're just, sometimes it would take a couple of days, but still, that looks really good. But in terms of that, the things we would send to people, here's the thing. If you have somebody that's already in retirement, all their money is, let's say, in IRAs or something like that, we're not going to be sending them how to move away from a 401k plan, right? So if we standardize out and we do automation for the things that we're sending to people, it's not going to work because that's not relative to that person. And so we had a handful of items that we would attach based on that person's need, and those would all be from the notes from that first phone call. It would talk about their life story. Well, here's where this person's at in terms of retirement. So they don't have a pension. I'm not going to send them information about a pension. They're already taking their Social Security. I'm not going to send them something about Social Security timing, right? So it has to be relative to that person. And we had an arsenal of enough articles and enough blog posts and enough worksheets, expense sheets, all those different kinds of things to know how to cherry pick a couple of those to send it over to them.
And media appearances probably too, right?
Absolutely.
Radio spots and
radio
TV spots.
clips, yep, TV show or a TV clip. We had a lot of different things because people are really visual, and most of them are opening it up on their mobile device where it's like they're not sitting down at a computer to read a whole screenshot. They want to just see, click a video from my advisor, and then watch the advisor say, hey, thanks so much for visiting with us. I'm going to look forward to seeing you next week. Something as simple as that, right? So we put together a process and we kept ourselves really accountable to that, because if somebody came in on a Monday and their next appointment was the following Monday, I'm setting myself a check back for middle of that week to send them out something or to give them a call or to do something with them. It's not just great, we hope they show up for their next meeting, see you then, or once they become a client, great, we'll never talk to you until it's time for your annual review. It was like, what do I need to do next that makes sense with this person? And going back to the pre-visit worksheet and getting the statements and asking that person, when do you think you could get it sent to me? Okay, you think Wednesday? My check back's going to be for Wednesday. And it's either going to be, yes, they sent it, or no, they didn't, and I need to call them again, right? So it was always just, there's always another date on that person. There's always another check-in on that person.
Yeah, the one thing that we've started to do here with advisors for those drip campaigns is putting together, having them do sort of an evergreen video that goes out via email. You mentioned the snail mail and it going out to a generation of people where that still means something.
Yes.
But you're also kind of bleeding into that new arena where people are, that email is still maybe a little bit more valuable or potentially kind of usurping it, and putting together a video that says, hey, it was great meeting with you. We look forward to the next appointment. Here's the next thing that you can bring in, and having it be that touch point. But what I'm picking up from you is that these are not just touch points for the sake of being a touch point. These are so much more strategic than that.
Absolutely.
And if you're not able to do that, you're not treating leads with the sort of care that they need to. And the whole, the banner of this series with Beth is work less and produce more. And that work less isn't on the front end. It's on the back end a little bit, because there's still a lot of work to get the fish in the boat.
Yep.
You can't just reel it in and, that worked out perfect, throw it back in there. So I think that that's something that I really want to stress. And in the next episode, we will get into that. Now they've become a client. Now what? And how do you perfect this? And how do you get better? And really taking that next step as a practice and elevating the people that are in your practice and making sure everyone's in the right seat. So, Beth, once again, thank you so much for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have. Is there anything else that you want to sneak in here before we close up shop and I tell the people about House Rules and Selling with Stories starring Randy Cook?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, we covered a lot here, and we cover a lot more in House Rules. Those drip campaign House Rules videos that Alex House, our Chief Marketing Officer, has put together are really insightful, and they include some of the things that you can be including. Maybe you're an advisor that's not on radio and TV. That's okay. There are still plenty of other ways in which you can drip on a prospect and still provide value and still keep in mind those hot button issues that you've obviously been taking meticulous notes on throughout this entire process. So, like and subscribe. Check out those videos in episode 3 coming around the way. Thanks, Beth.